Okay, hello, and you're very welcome to Clare Echo video special as Championship comes upon us. We're delighted to be back behind the screens, looking forward to Clare versus Kerry, which takes place in Fitzgerald Stadium in Killarney this Saturday. And joining us to look ahead to the game, we're joined by former Clare football captain Alan Clohessy and ex-Clare junior manager Peter O'Connell. Men, you're very welcome, and thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks, Páraic.
Just to begin, Alan, we'll turn to yourself. Clare come into the game having narrowly missed out on Division 1 promotion. From the league campaign that you saw, what were the main standouts from the Clare perspective?
I suppose any league going into this, it's difficult starting off to know where you are. So, I think they hit the ground running fairly well in the Laois game. That was the kind of situation where they looked like they should win the game. They won the game. They were happy with it. They got plenty of scores on the board. Got in a good position going to Kildare. Went to Kildare and again, that's a great win up there to get that. That has to have given them a lot of confidence going forward. But then, they must have been happy and motoring, but to be kind of go into the Cork game buoyant and then not get the win and then possibly not get the more favourable position going forward for the next game, must have disappointed them slightly. So obviously they were going to be satisfied with having maintained their position and got into the semi-final and had a chance at going up to Division 1, but probably not getting what the most they could out of the Cork game would be disappointment. Probably the game management at the end of the game possibly would upset them. But I think the fact that they blooded a share of new players and they seem to be getting the most out of the older lads that had been there over the years. It's been impressive with the likes of Darragh Bohannon in particular. He seemed to have stepped up, and Darren O'Neill has stepped up big time. And then when you can introduce lads like Dan Walsh, who I know from soccer here years ago, but he has seemed to have come on the scene, and even the likes of Joe McGann, he's electric. You'd just love to watch him play football. You'd hope he gets more of a chance going forward.
And Alan, obviously the league format this year was slightly different to previous years, but just for you as an ex-player, would you have preferred the quick turnaround in terms of it's only 2 weeks since they played Mayo and now they're into Championship?
I would actually, yeah. I just like playing games. When you were playing, let's say the longer version of the league, let's say when you're playing 7 or 8 games, I think particularly because they played fairly well. I felt they played fairly well, and they should probably have felt they played fairly well. Sometimes if you stop, you might lose your momentum, you lose a bit of rhythm. The fact that it was quick turnaround, maybe they might have wanted a little bit more work or in between, let's say, for planning wise. But I think it's 2 weeks is a nice gap. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't like that. I think I would have enjoyed that myself.
And obviously, a clash with Kerry is never easy. Never mind when it's in Killarney. So, Peter, in your view, how, if you had the job that Colin Collins has, how would you set Clare up tactically for this test?
I think they're probably going to have to be very flexible, Paddy, and the first. The thing that they're probably not going to look at is the game in its entirety over 70 minutes. You've got to try and get through the first 10 minutes, first 20 minutes, get to halftime, still hopefully very, very competitive. And that hasn't happened in some of the more recent championship games against Kerry. Kerry will have a very simple approach. They'll set out to, put the game away as early as they can. Back in the last time they met in Keswick Park, I think it was 2019, Kerry were leading. They were 9 points up at half time. I think it was 1-9 to 3 points. It was 113 to 4 points a few minutes into the second half. So while Clare actually did, come back very well, roughly the last 20 minutes of that game, the game as a contest, the game was kind of already over. And the previous time they played them down in Fitzgerald Stadium as well, Kerry scored 32 points. And so in terms of how Clare should set up, I don't think they should go, and I don't think they will go overly defensive. I think that they'll try and set themselves up particularly around the middle third, where hopefully they can win plenty ball themselves. Personally, I think the best way to take on Kerry is to try to attack within reason. You know, you have to have a bit of a balance, like between leaving yourself too open at the other side, but at the same time you need a threat yourself as well. So it's a bit of a balance. I can't see Clare, you know, putting everyone behind the ball from minute one. I think that when they have to get people behind the ball, they will. But when you get people behind the ball, then you need to know, like as Alan would know far better than I know, that everyone needs to know, you know, what they're doing in the position they're in. They're not just filling a space, that they're getting a tackle in, trying to win the ball back, and then breaking forward, because like there's no point. Anyone can put 14 lads behind the ball and think, you know, that's a good strategy, but it doesn't work against a team like Kerry. If you know, allow them kind of free rein in the middle third of the field with the ball, they'll find a way. Like they have too many good players. So I think Clare will need to be imaginative in how they set up. At times will need to get lads behind the ball, but at the same time, that needs to be part of how they attack as well and break forward. I think Clare have been kicking great scores like all year, you know, and they're kicking enough in every game to win most games, you know. So it's just a case of making sure that there's that bit of a balance at the other side as well, and that they don't particularly concede goals early. Like I think that's going to be really important.
And the addition of Jerry McGowan from Sligo to the management has been praised by Colm Collins and players for helping to bring in a more patient approach from Clare. So Peter, the talk in Kerry is that their backline, they're not entirely confident in their backline. So, you know, that from what you're saying, it's nearly key, is it, that Clare do go kind of an attack-minded approach?
Yeah, I think so, you know, because Kerry, the longer Clare stay in this game, there's a lot of pressure on Kerry. I mean, the last time Kerry played Munster Championship, they were beaten, and I know the same is true of Clare. I suppose in a way, both Clare and Kerry were kind of, well, Kerry were definitely shocked. Clare would have expected, I think, to beat Tipperary. Like it was a very good draw last year. But the reaction in Kerry obviously is much more, much more outspoken amongst the supporters and everyone in Kerry. They expect to win every game they play, maybe with the exception of Dublin, you know. Like for Kerry to get beaten by anyone except Dublin is unacceptable, and even to get beaten by Dublin doesn't go down too well down there. So I think there's a lot of pressure on Kerry, definitely a lot of pressure on the manager. There isn't any pressure on Clare. Like at the same time, I always feel I don't, you know, this line where you often hear people saying it's a no-lose situation. I don't agree with that. Like, I mean, these Clare players have shown over the years pretty come back and big performance. I suppose it's the one thing that Clare over the years in terms of Munster haven't done is, you know, win a game that you wouldn't expect them to win, or at least compete in a game, compete really, really well. So I think, Kerry are by no means the perfect team. You know, they've got some great players. We know that, but you know, a lot of them still haven't done it in a really defining game. Even if you look at the likes of David Clifford, fantastic player, and like as Alan was saying about Joe McGann, you'd love watching Joe McGann, love watching David Clifford as well. But and I know he's retired now, but Gordon Kelly seemed to have a way of, you know, keeping him quiet over the last 2 years, and he actually David Clifford has said a couple of times that his toughest opponent was Gordon Kelly, you know. So I think it might be no harm in whoever is being detailed to mark David Clifford this weekend to have a bit of a chat during the week with Gordon and see what the secret is.
Exactly. And Alan, to quote yourself, as Peter referenced there is pressure on Peter Keane. So, you know, from your time involved with setups, if a manager is under pressure, does that feed in? Can the players, you know, feel that as well and sense that sense of pressure that is on the manager?
I don't think a huge amount. I suppose maybe it can, but you shouldn't let it get into the mindset of the players anyway. In particular, like the players have enough on their plate with implementing game plans and things like that. And yeah, you would hear bits and pieces maybe of question marks over management at times, but probably not to the extent of what Peter Keane has been probably dealing with below there, where it's obviously very football centric down there, and he's going to be questioned on every situation that comes up. And the fact that Cork beat him last year, kind of from a position where they shouldn't been, we probably haven't, as Peter said there, have Clare gone and won a game that they shouldn't have won? Have they caused a surprise? No. So on that point of view, we haven't gone through that situation where we were totally beaten out of a game where we should have been winning it, or seen to be winning it. Okay, a tip last year, they were probably favourites, but not to the extent of a Kerry team, or not to the expectation that a Kerry team were dealing with. So it probably wouldn't translate as much, or I don't remember it happening as much anyway.
And I suppose Kerry's league campaign, they're unbeaten from the league just gone, comprehensive wins over Galway and Tyrone. Alan, from what you saw, Kerry, was there anything in particular that jumped out that was particularly impressive?
I suppose the Dublin game, I suppose you look at it and you say they conceded 4 goals. I think it was possibly a full back. Got rolled a couple of times, turned a couple of times. Morley, although he hasn't played the last couple of days, he got turned for probably the Callaghan goal, the first goal. But you're nitpicking a little bit by saying they conceded 4 goals, because they didn't in any other game. They didn't, and Dublin are the yardstick, and Dublin still didn't manage to beat them. You wouldn't say it was the strongest Dublin team that was there. Weaknesses wise, I think they're unsure about their midfield as it stands. I'm not sure they know their best midfield at the moment. Saying that, they probably have 4 good players available to play in midfield, and a little bit unsure around the half back line. They are keen to get forwards. It's all part of the way they play the game. But if you can, it's a big if you could put concerted pressure on that half back line and get ball, I think it's a strength. I think obviously having Owen in the kind of form he's in at the moment is a big threat for Clare, and getting David out around that zone where David Tubridy, where he's getting on the ball. If we can get him consistently on the ball there and providing in around that half back line, their half back line or their midfield, he can pick holes. He is that kind of talent that he can pick holes in that back line. So you're hoping that Clare can maintain a decent level of possession in that area, and then allow those players to dictate a little bit of the play towards Kerry. And like Peter said there, you have to put them going backwards at some point. You can't just stick it in reverse and hope you'll back them down. You won't beat a Kerry team like that, because there's too much talent there. So you have to be a force going forward yourself. So probably look to that area there and establishing a bit of possession there, and allowing those players to try and pick the holes for you.
David Tubridy there, Alan, one of the names you mentioned, a man you shared a dressing room with. Are you any bit surprised to see him in such good form still in 2021?
I'm not, I'll be honest with you, because even playing with Tubbs, sure, 8-10 years ago, you'd look at him and you'd say, he's not that quick, he's not that strong, but yet he is that quick and he is that strong, and he's always in good positions, and he's always available to look for a ball. And he has this incredible balance about him. His game isn't built on power and speed all the time. He just finds himself in positions, and he can see an awful lot of the field a lot better than other people, and then he can execute whatever he wants with the football. He's gifted now. He's as good a footballer as obviously I've ever had the pleasure of playing with. So I think Cullum has maybe helped him out in that situation, where he brings him out around the field and gives him a little bit of license, and he does work back. He works hard coming back as well, but they're trying to get him on the ball and get him playmaking, and there's no better man available for that situation.
And Peter, just to look at Clare's defence for a second, they had went a large chunk of the league without conceding a goal, and then 2 conceded against Mayo. Do you think they're ready for the test they're going to get on Saturday in Killarney?
Yeah, I think they are, because they know what they're up against, and they're going to be they won't lack ambition, and they'll have a very clear plan. I think as like the defence are going to be very reliant on people in front of them as well, you know. And I think probably one of the key lines to my mind for Clare, and this is both in a defensive sense but also in an attacking sense, is probably the half forward line. I think if the half forward line is going, if you're going to have Pearson, Starr Bohannon, the two wing forwards, and Owen Cleary centre forward, you're going to need a massive work rate from the two, particularly from two wing forwards, in terms of being able to track back, win their own ball, get into the good defensive positions, but at the same time break forward as well. And like, if it's a lot easier to defend if the people in front of you are working extremely hard and getting those tackles and covering that space. And like, Fitzgerald Stadium it's a massive pitch, and like, the one thing that there's no defender in Ireland who would be able to defend against some of those Kerry forwards if there's a lot of space in front of the two of them, and if the player out the field is allowed to deliver in a ball at will, you know, a diagonal ball or something like that into space. Impossible, like, for a cornerback or a fullback to defend against that. So it's going to be, Clare's defensive plan is going to have to be you know, a 14-man plan out the field, like high up the field, putting pressure on, you know, making sure that Kerry have as minimal time as possible on the ball. And if Clare can do that, it's very easy to say that now. It's an awful easy, simple thing to say, like, but if Clare can do that for as much as possible of the game, or as long as possible, it'll make the job a good bit easier for the boys inside. Maybe easy is too strong a word, but it'll certainly make it more palatable, you know, to be marking some of those Kerry forwards. Kickouts are going to be important as well. You know, like, one of the kickouts against Mayo, it went wrong from Stephen Ryan, but what I like about him is he's always trying to do the right thing, you know, and there's a nice variety to his kickouts as well. You know, go along with some, go short with some. They're nice and quick. So I think Clare will be well served in that regard.
And we've a couple of players coming back available for selection. Obviously, Podge Collins back to full fitness. Connor Jordan available for selection, and hopefully Kevin Harnett might be back in the mix. So, Alan, would you be inclined to stick with the 15, or would you make changes for the Kerry game?
If I had a Kevin Harnett fully fit and I was comfortable that he was fit, I'd probably like to introduce Kevin. I don't think we have too many as good man markers as Kevin, even still. But that's all down to his fitness. Like, if he's available, I'd like to play him. I don't know enough about Connor Jordan, so I can't probably form an opinion on him. Podge, I like the idea of introducing Podge into the game. I'm not 100% whether you start him or not, because I like the way, like, I think Dara and Pearson, the two wings, have done well so far. They've probably earned their spots. You're not going to move on out of centre forward, so whether you go trying to find a spot initially, but I like the idea of him coming in. If you can keep Clare in the game, have him available there. Like, he was excellent against Mayo in that he came in, moved the ball, shifted the point of attack, and was never gave a target to be hit. So, you know, the game had broken up at that point, so you'd like to have him in there. Other than that, I don't see an awful lot of changes really now. I suppose their hope that the full forward line will probably remain the same as well. Or there's possibilities of changes there, I suppose. Sorry, I should say. You wouldn't know if the next Keane is available.
Yeah. Okay. And Peter, just to turn to yourself there, if we to give you the million dollar question, a call in what way Saturday's game is going to go, what way would you call it?
I hope. I mean, we'd love to see Clare winning it. Like, that's goes without saying. But realistically, we have to, I suppose, acknowledge that Kerry will be very warm favourites. I think that Clare, I've been really impressed by the way Clare have set up this year in games. You know, they've that word you mentioned earlier on, patience, I think has been, it's been very noticeable. Like, that they really have been good on the ball. I would expect Clare to be very, very competitive, but I just think that, you know, when it comes down to it, Kerry will probably have too much firepower. But listen, in sport, as we all know, we can point to loads of different things over the years across a range of sports where if on a given day things go right for you, you get one or two bits of luck at either side of the field, stay in the game for as long as possible, have a bit of impact from the bench. That's a really vital thing. Like as Alan was saying, in terms of possible impact from pods from the bench. You know, if you can bring in 4 or 5 players and you get real impacts from maybe 3 or 4, couple of scores, maybe a couple of assists or a block, or someone wins a vital ball. You never know. You can't rule it out. I expect Clare to be very competitive, but realistically, it'd be a massive shock if Kerry don't win it by probably 4 or 5 points.
Okay. Alan, to turn to yourself, are you a bit more optimistic than Mr. O'Connell and Páraic McMahon?
He's the realist there, I think. I've again been hugely impressed with the way Clare have gone about their business. They've put up high scores, they've been effective. Even the last day against Mayo, against a very strong team, they limited them that second half to minimal scores. So you got to be hoping for that type of thing where they can keep the tempo. Clare, I noticed this year when they keep the tempo up, like that second half tempo against Mayo was when everything was really snappy. They were hugely effective. So unfortunately, I'd have to go along with Peter. I can't see Clare just quite having enough for it. You're probably looking at the second best team in the country at the moment, with something to prove as well. So I can't see Clare unfortunately getting a win down there. I wish them well, obviously enough, but it's going to be a huge ask.
Okay. Hopefully we'll be back to reflect on historic win for Clare and Killarney, but at this stage, thanks very much to Alan Clohessy and Peter O'Connell for their insight and analysis ahead of this game, and there'll be more insight and reaction and previews in the Clare Echo this week and online over the course of the weekend. So we do hope you enjoyed the game, and thanks very much to Alan and Peter for joining us.